does the mummy not have any friends? Dunno? Because he's too wrapped up in himself. I hope that you're all continuing with your attitude of gratitude. Today's story is intended to make you think about making the most of what you've got. It's called Stone Soup. It's a really old story. I remember hearing it when I was young, and I'm sure it's a story that's probably translated into lots of languages. If your parents heard this story growing up, then I'd love you to come and tell me about it when we get back to school. Stone Soup. 3 soldiers trudged down a road in a strange country. They were on their way home from the wars. Besides being tired, they were hungry. In fact, they had eaten nothing for 2 days. "How I would like a good dinner tonight," said the first. "And a bed to sleep in," said the second. "But all that is impossible," said the third. "We must march on." Suddenly, ahead of them, they saw the lights of a village. "Maybe we'll find a bite to eat there," said the first. "And a loft to sleep in," said the second. "No harm in asking," said the third. Now the peasants of that place feared strangers. When they heard that 3 soldiers were coming down the road, they talked among themselves. "Here come 3 soldiers. Soldiers are always hungry, but we have little enough for ourselves." And they hurried to hide their food. They hid all they had to eat. Then they waited. The soldiers stopped at the first house of Paul and Francois. "Good evening to you," they said. "Could you spare a bit of food for 3 hungry soldiers?" "We have had no food for ourselves," said Paul. Francois made a sad face. "It has been a poor harvest." The 3 soldiers went to the house of Albert and Louise. "Could you spare a bit of food? And have you some corner where we could sleep for the night?" "Oh no," said Albert. "We gave all we could to the soldiers who came before you." At Vincent and Marie's, the answer was the same. It had been a poor harvest, and all the grain must be kept for seed. So it went all through the village. Not a peasant had any food to give away. They all had good reasons. The villagers stood in the street and sighed. They looked as hungry as they could. The 3 soldiers talked together. Then the first soldier called out, "Good people." The peasants drew near. "We are 3 hungry soldiers in a strange land. We have asked you for food, and you have no food. Well then, we will have to make stone soup." The peasants stared. Stone soup? That would be something to know about. "First, we'll need a large iron pot," the soldiers said. The peasants brought the largest pot they could find. It took many buckets of water to fill the pot. A fire was built on the village square, and the pot was set to boil. "And now, if you please, 3 round, smooth stones." Those were easy enough to find. The peasants' eyes grew round as they watched the soldiers drop the stones into the pot. "Any soup needs salt and pepper," said the soldiers. They began to stir. Children ran to fetch salt and pepper. Stones like these generally make good soup, but oh, if they were carrots, it would be much better. "Why, I think I have a carrot or two," said Francois, and off she ran. She came back with her apron full of carrots from the bin beneath the red quilt. "A good stone soup should have cabbage," said the soldiers as they sliced the carrots into the pot. "But no use asking, because you don't have any." "I think I could find a cabbage somewhere," said Marie. And she hurried home. Back she came with 3 cabbages from the cupboard under the bed. "If we only had a bit of beef and a few potatoes, this soup would be good enough for a rich man's table." The peasants remembered their potatoes and the sides of beef hanging in the cellars. They ran to fetch them. A rich man's soup, and all from a few stones. It seemed like magic. At last, the soup was ready. "All of you shall taste," the soldiers said. "But first, a table must be set." Great tables were placed in the square. Such a soup! How good it smelled! Truly fit for a king. But then the peasants asked themselves, would not such a good soup require bread and a roast and cider? Soon a banquet was spread and everyone sat down to eat. Never had there been such a feast. Never had the peasants tasted such soup. And fancy, made from stones. They ate and drank and ate and drank, and after that they danced. At last they were tired. Then the 3 soldiers asked, "Is there not a loft where we could sleep?" "Let such wise and splendid gentlemen sleep in a loft? Indeed, they must have the best beds in the village." So the first soldier slept in the priest's house. The second soldier slept in the baker's house. And the third soldier slept in the mayor's house. In the morning, the whole village gathered in the square to give them a send-off. "Many thanks for what you have taught us," the peasants said to the soldiers. "We shall never go hungry now that we know how to make soup from stones." "Oh, it's all in knowing how," said the soldiers. And they went off down the road. Through the story of stone soup, we learned how important it is to share, and actually how much better our quality of life can be when we share, when we have an attitude of gratitude, when we take what we need instead of just what we want, when we're not selfish. So I'd like you to take this moment of reflection just to think about something that perhaps you've shared with somebody else. It might be a kind word. Maybe you've shared something that you've got at home with a brother or sister, or shared some of your time with your parents to make their lives a little bit easier. How have you shared?
This is Pantosaurus. He's going to help us with our song about pants. Pantosaurus, What's in your pants belongs only to you. Your pants cover up your private parts.
Your private parts belong only to you. If someone asks to see, just tell them no. Pantosaurus likes to wear his pants. He wears them all day long. They cover up his private parts, and that's what makes him strong. If someone asks to see or tries to touch him underneath them, he tells them no, then tells someone he trusts and likes to speak to. What's in your pants belongs only to you. Your pants cover up your private parts. Your private parts belong only to you. If someone asks to see, just tell them no. If someone asks to see or tries to touch under your pants and says to keep it secret, then you must tell them no. Then go and find someone you trust and tell them straight away. They'll say, well done for speaking out and make everything okay. What's in your pants belongs only to